I would like to welcome you all to the Twig Bookshop. We appreciate very much you coming out. I don't know if you are aware, but the Twig has been around for over 50 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
Yes, we have been in this spot for over 13, and we would not be here if it weren't for the writers, the readers, and we really appreciate the local authors coming in and having conversations and bringing in friends and guests, and we just couldn't be more appreciative of having you here. And Rachel, with that, I would like to introduce you to everyone and let us know about your book, and let's have a great conversation.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, well, I agree. Welcome, everyone, to the Twig Bookshop. We are being broadcasted here from San Antonio, Texas. I am Jessica E. Knight, and I moderate conversations with authors and illustrators here in Southwest Texas on behalf of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. But we're really here to hear from Rachel Toalson, who writes under the name R.L. Toalson. She has many novels, which we'll get into later, but today she is launching this novel, The First Magnificent Summer, so we'll be mostly discussing around this book. And let me just read a little bit more about her before we get started. She lives with her husband and 6 children. Her first middle grade novel, The Colors of the Rain, won the Arnold Adolph Poetry Honor Award in 2020, and her second middle grade novel, The Woods, was named to the International Literacy Association Children's Choices 2020 reading list. So, everyone, please welcome Rachel Toalson. Yep, and if you don't mind, I have some questions on here that I'll be glancing at. So this is not your only book. Just to get started, did you always want to be a writer?
Pretty much. I mean, when I was a kid, my mom kept me supplied with like printer paper because my kindergarten teacher was like, she talks a lot. And she tells a lot of stories, so maybe if you could like provide her with something to write them down. And my mom tells me this because that's how she kind of got me to stop like telling outrageous stories and stuff. So I was very young when I knew I wanted to be a writer. So reading all of the books, my mom would take us to the library every week, and I just knew when I would read a book, I would think, I really want to do that someday. So I started really early, like in 3rd grade, I wrote my own books. And
That's inspirational. You said printer paper. Did you ever use spiral notebooks or composition books?
Not until I was older. I wasn't quite as organized when I was like really young, and so I just had stapled together books. My mom still has some of them too. Like the drawings are terrible because I'm not an artist, but the stories are kind of cute.
Yes.
So.
Well, you have to start somewhere.
Yep.
So what is one of your favorite childhood books?
So I have a lot, but as far as like when I was really young, I loved Where the Wild Things Are. So that was one of my favorites. When I got a little older, Judy Blume was huge for me, and Madeline L'Engle was really big. Scott Odell, he doesn't have as much, like people don't know as much about him now. But I loved all of his books. So there were a lot of favorites. I would read everything basically. So
Yes. Well, now you have become a writer like you always hoped. And I was wondering, how does your daily life contribute to your work as a writer?
Well, I have all of these children, and they read a lot of books, and so they're constantly like, I usually just read children's books. I don't read a whole lot of, I do read some adult, but I read mostly children's books, and so we compare notes, and they're also super creative kids, so, sometimes they'll say things that I'm just like, oh, I should write a story about that. And I always tell this story when I go visit schools, but there was
there's a very clear memory I have of when one of my sons was, I won't name him because he'll probably get embarrassed, but when he was really young, he was supposed to be sweeping the floor, but instead he was like dancing around with the broom and doing like all of this I wonder stuff. And he said, I wonder what it would be like to live in a house with no roof. And so I wrote a middle grade story called it. I haven't done anything beyond just the first draft, but it's called The House with No Roof. So they give me inspiration, and they challenge me to be creative, and they're some of my first readers, which is kind of fun. So I do try to get them to read more of the stuff, but video games. So
sure, we have those in my house too. So you mentioned children, and I read about that you have a husband as well. I was wondering, how do you balance your work life, your family life? There must be a lot of things pulling at your time. So how do you get it done?
It's a challenge. I'd say that's probably one of my biggest challenges that I have is trying to figure out what can I give to family and what can I give to career. Judy Blume says, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. And I love that quote because it reminds me that, as much as I want to do with my career, sometimes it has to be limited by what my kids need from me. So I have to balance those things. And I will say that it has been an ongoing struggle, but as the kids get older and they do more things for themselves, it's a little bit easier to let myself, do things with my career and that kind of thing. So it's a lot and we have a very divided household between me and my husband. So it's very important that my career is not more important than his, and his is not more important than mine. So we established that pretty early in our relationship, and so that helps out a lot.
Sounds great. And you are very accomplished. She's kind of downplaying it by saying how much time it must take. We'll get to that. Yeah. But what is your work environment like when you do sit down to write? Mostly, is there a pet with you? Are you by a window? Are you alone? I'm
usually alone. I think in order for me to be as creative as I can be, I have to not be responsible for anything. So like my husband and I, we carve our day kind of down the middle. So once it hits 12:30, I know that's the time when I am not responsible for anybody. There can be like cacophony everywhere. And I don't have to be, worried about what's going on, what the kids are getting into. And so I kind of go into my room and I hold myself up. I have a little area that's set up for the creating. And there's a window, there's a little cabinet where I have my computer and I can open and shut the doors. And it's a very peaceful place, except it kind of opens on my husband's side of the room. And so that gets a little messy. And sometimes I'm like, okay, babe, I cannot create with all of this mess. Can we do something about the clutter? I just threw him under the bus. I'm sorry, Ben.
Okay, too much. So thank you. I've noticed that a few of your books do include some Texas history. So you're a native Texan,
yeah.
And you've included some Texas history in your book. So first off, as a student yourself, did you enjoy Texas history?
I did not.
You did not? Okay,
No.
I was surprised by that. Okay.
Yeah, I think my love of history came later, and it was more because of the texts that I was able to read when I got older. A lot of times, the texts that you have to read for history in school are just not all that enveloping, I guess. And I got to pick what I wanted to read when I got older. So sometimes, when there are historical elements, I'll just take a deep dive into those elements. And sometimes it's something that comes later to a book, and sometimes it's something that just starts out, being a part of the book. So
right, yes, I noticed in one of your books it starts out with an explosion.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a different story, but still on Texas history. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I asked if she had ever learned about the Branch Davidians in Waco, which are briefly mentioned in the first Magnificent Summer.
Yeah.
And she had not, and we talked about it. And I wondered if probably readers of this book, that might be the first time they're exposed to that Texas history. And so I just wondered, is it important to you to make readers aware of history when you're throwing it in your stories? It's intentional.
Yeah. I think sometimes just them asking the question of their parents, like that was a big thing for me when I was a kid. I remember hearing about all of that and seeing it all over the news. And that's partially why it's in the book, because this book takes place during when my childhood was, you know. But opening those conversations and talking about some of that history, I feel like is a really important thing for people and for kids to get perspective on, you know, different things. And so I do try to, you know, slide those in every now and then. Obviously you can't do that with every book because not every book is a historical book, but it, you know, in this one I tried to get little elements from the 90s that just, I remember standing out to me, and hoping that kids would, sometimes, you know, kids will just gloss over it and be like, oh, whatever, I don't know what that is, I don't care, you know, but sometimes they'll ask their parents, like, what's the Branch Davidian? What were the Branch Davidians? You know, and it's an interesting story. So.
And Selena, I think, was also.
Yeah, Selena.
Okay. So the time period of this book is similar to the time period of your growing up. Okay.
Yeah.
If you had to name a couple of books that are similar in some ways to the first Magnificent Summer for comparison, what books might you say and why?
Well, definitely Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. That was a big one. And that was because that was the first one I remember as a young girl talking about puberty and talking about, you know, the things that girls are going through at that age. So that's actually a really big comparison title for this one. And then Barbara D. writes a lot of kind of issue-related books. Maybe He Just Likes You is one of them, and that's one that they kind of compared this one to. So some of those books that are about, you know, some of the things that girls have to deal with on a daily basis, and then as they're, you know, in their growing up years. So
yes,
yeah.
And I think the timing is so great because that book,
I know,
J.D.
it was just
Bloom,
like serendipitous.
Yes, in a movie form. Yes,
Yeah.
and I did take my daughter to see that.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
I haven't
so-
seen it yet.
No.
I want to. Yeah.
Someone take her. Okay. So the character Victoria in this book references the writing of Virginia Woolf. Are you influenced by her? And I brought a pen to take notes in case you have a favorite.
Oh,
Virginia
you know what?
Woolf
I
quote.
brought. So I have this. I love Virginia Woolf. I've read like her diaries. I've read her biography. I've read just about every book she's written. My favorite, of course, is A Room of One's Own, which is like the book about women and writing, you know, and having a room of your own and how that's the way that you can create, you know. But I found this at the New York Public Library. It's Virginia Woolf, Important Quotes from a Feminist Icon. And I bought it because I was like, Victoria would love this. And so I actually, because of your question here, I pulled aside a few quotes. If you'll
Please.
If you'll humor me, I'll read a couple of my favorite quotes. So this is from A Room of One's Own, which she wrote in 1929. So long as you write what you wish to write, that is all that matters. And whether it matters for ages or only for hours, nobody can say. So that's like a big writing quote for me. I'll skip that one, but I thought this is one of my favorites, but it's kind of timely. Lock up your libraries if you like, but there is no gate, no lock, no bolt that you can set upon the freedom of my mind. That is also from A Room of One's Own. So I love that one. And then the third one, this is kind of, I think when I had read this, it had been percolating in my mind for a long time, and it's why I started writing the first Magnificent Summer. It is much more important to be oneself than anything else. That is also from A Room of One's Own. So
Thank you.
those are my favorites.
You're very prepared for that question. Excellent.
I wanted to honor Victoria. She loves,
Yes.
she's like me. She loves Virginia Woolf.
Right, she is a writer and a reader. Yes. Okay. So one of the Virginia Woolf quotes in the book says, "If you do not tell the truth about yourself, you cannot tell it about other people." And actually, I'm pretty sure Victoria wrote that, right, in her journal. Okay. quoting Virginia.
Yeah.
Can you share how some of your truth is part of Victoria's story?
Yeah. So I experienced some of the same things that Victoria experienced in the book. She is going to visit her dad not right after, but about 2 years after her parents have divorced, and she hasn't seen him in 2 years. And that was the case with me. And then we took a long road trip to Ohio, which is in the book. And once she gets there, she starts her first period. And so she's like 1,000 miles away from her mom, and she's with her dad and this new family. And that's what I experienced too. And it was a very traumatic entrance into womanhood, basically. And so I tried to capture that in the book, and that experience is very much, the same. And then just there are a lot of similarities. Like, her character is very much like me. She's very sarcastic. She's very, she has a lot of thoughts in her head that she doesn't say out loud because she's like, no, that's mean. So I should keep that to myself. She self-edits basically. That's, I don't know. I love the character because I'm like, she's so much like me. I just had so much fun putting her on the page.
Yes. Well, that topic you mentioned sounds like it could have been a very embarrassing and stressful situation, but and it is stressful in the book as you read it, but also you do have humor in there.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah.
Let's see. I do have a little bit more about the tough topics. So 12-year-old Victoria deals with some tough situations that you have mentioned. And I don't know if I want to read all of this, but her dad kind of squashes her confidence a bit. And there's anxiety and more. And how do you approach these serious issues to make them digestible for a target audience of middle grade readers?
So this is kind of, I call it my brand, but that's like the buzzword now. Because I grew up in a lot of tough situations, and there are a lot of kids growing up in tough situations. So I don't want to shy away from those because it's important for them to see characters like themselves and know that there's hope for getting out of those. So I try to approach it in different ways. So my first book was a novel in verse, and it also approaches tough topics, but because of the verse, it kind of leaves breathing room for, you don't have to be explicit in verse. You can leave things unsaid and the reader gets the point. And then for this one in particular, I tried really hard to put a lot of levity and funny moments in there, even in times when she's like going through a really tough time. Like, something she'll say is just so ridiculously random or funny that it kind of lightens the whole situation. So I was very intentional about doing that because I know that when you're dealing with tough topics, it's hard for kids to see that all the time. And the reader can get very tired of, not tired, but just it weighs heavily. And so you want to put a little bit of either breathing room or funny moments. Where I remember reading one of the parts because I always read the books out loud to my kids whenever we get the advanced reader copy. And there was one moment where she's like, it's a really tough moment with her dad. And she says something like, yes, those words actually came out of my mouth. And everybody in the room burst out laughing because they were just like, yeah, she has this, like, she thinks it's ridiculous too. So it was, yeah.
I appreciate that you were so thoughtful and intentional in trying to balance that because as a reader, I wouldn't want to read something that was too strong on the negative. So you're right. She's not. She's positive. So the anxiety that Victoria experiences reminds me a little of the graphic novel character Shannon from the middle grade Best Friends trilogy. There are author notes for that series, and there are author notes at the end of the first Magnificent Summer that have a similar, actually encouraging and empowering ending. I don't know that you've read Best Friends, but
I'm in the middle of it, but
okay. So, but also a tough topic, still with some hope and some empowering, some strategies. So that's good. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a hallmark of children's literature too, is that, you can approach these topics, but you land it with hope. you know, because kids need to know that the darkness won't last forever. And even if it doesn't tie up perfectly, which, you know, my endings rarely tie up perfectly because that's not how life goes. You can still end it with hope and empowerment and a kid learning something about themselves that, you know, is something, a way that they can find their voice or find their power, you know.
Yes, I also, as an adult, prefer endings like that.
Yeah, me too.
So
that's why I read children's literature,
Me
like
too.
exclusively almost.
I'm an enthusiast. Yes. I can see this book being gifted to readers along with a journal. Wouldn't that be great? The card would say something like, "You are magnificent, and the world needs your words." I think this book might inspire young people to process their feelings through writing. Do you think writing is a therapeutic, healthy way to process feelings and nervous energy? I think we might have an idea of your thoughts. Tell us more.
Oh man, I'm very vocal about the positive effects of journaling. I've kept a journal since I was like really, really young, and I don't have a lot of those younger journals, but even since I think I have all of my journals since college, and even today I bookend my days in the morning and the evening with journaling. And part of it is that you can download everything on the page, and you don't have to be consumed by it throughout your day. You know, I deal with anxiety, I deal with depression, and those things can be helped by keeping a journal and being, I don't know, just having a practice of like putting thoughts and worries down. My anxiety gets stuck in my head and it like sometimes spirals, and I can see that on the page. Like when I look back at my journals, I can pinpoint the things that I was feeling anxious about for like weeks at a time, because that's all there is in there. I mean, not all there is, but like I come back to it repeatedly, you know? So it's really helpful to see those patterns. And I tell people this, like when you look at your journals from a broader perspective, you can see those patterns. And when you're in those situations again, you can be like, yeah, but I've already dealt with that. And so I know how to deal with it. And I'm confident now that I can deal with it, you know? So that's one of the things this summer. I usually like create writing prompts for my kids, like they have to write during the summer, but this summer I said, okay, we're going to do 4 journaling prompts, and then you can do like a creative prompt, because I want them to get into the habit of journaling, just because I feel like it's such an important piece of life. So my journals are kind of like prayers almost. So yeah, that's how I don't know.
Yes, and also kind of a time capsule.
Yep. Yeah. Capture memories.
When a reader discovers either this book or just any of your work, what do you hope the reader will find?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things with this book is just knowing that there will be people in their lives who expect them to be a certain kind of person or a certain kind of way, but who they are already is magnificent. So I'm going to get all emotional about it, but I think that's what I hope in all of my books, is just to say who you are is great. Like, you don't have to do anything to deserve love. You don't have to do anything to deserve goodness or publishing a book or any of that. So, I go to therapy because, you know, therapy's good for you. And my therapist always tells me, you write all of your hopes into the books, you know, and that's kind of, that's what I do. Like every book I write what I hope for the kids who read those books, you know.
That's very affirming. I am glad that your message you're sending out is a message like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for your vulnerability. So when I read this book, I really cared about Victoria because I read her journals, I felt like. And a question when I got to the end of the book, of course, was, will we hear more from Victoria?
Well, there is a sequel for next summer So I don't have a publication date yet, but it's called The Second Magnificent Summer. And it's you'll see Victoria more at home with her mom and her siblings. And her mom has a boyfriend. And so it's all about like the step parent experience. And she's very determined to make this guy go away. And so she there's all kinds of pranks and all kinds of, I mean, she is not nice, and she's very vocal about, she's like, I know this is not nice, but it's what you have to do, so it's a really fun, I love the book too, because it's very much like I was with my stepdad when I was 13, which is the age she is in The Second Magnificent Summer, when he came into our lives, and I did basically the same thing to him that Victoria does in the next book. So it was very cathartic too. And I dedicated it to my stepdad because he's a wonderful person. So,
okay,
and he stuck around. So
it sounds like it could be relatable, for a lot of people. Well, I think we have time to kind of move off of this book a little bit and just more into just you as a writer. Is there anything you'd like to share with us about your writing process? Or your research?
You know what? I think you had asked too about journals.
Yes.
I actually brought one of my journals because I thought this is one that like Victoria would have really loved because it's got, cute little rainbow and all of that. But I write all of my books. You'll see this is the beginning of a book, but I write all of my books by hand first. So I have volumes and volumes of notebooks, which is kind of like Victoria does with her journal. She carries around all of these composition books. I always have a composition book anywhere I go. I have an idea journal, so I capture all of those things. I'm usually working on like 4 books at once. Right now I'm working on, I think it's 4. Yeah.
Wow.
So it just kind of like, it helps the creativity when I can move on to another project and, start all of that. So, yeah, that's...
You're an idea factory. And then sometimes you have to do research. So how do you go about researching?
Well, the library, sometimes I'm like, the librarians are probably like, who is this person putting all these holds on these weird, obscure books? I think one time I had like the Royal Art of Poison and stuff, because I was researching poison, and it's, I have to work really hard not to get bogged down in research because I'm a very curious person. I used to be a journalist, so I'll try to find out everything I can about a subject if it's going to be in my book, and I don't know anything about it. So it's always a fun process for me to do the research part of things. So
it sounds like you're in the right profession. So
yeah, being curious.
Well, I don't know how much time we have, but I do want you to toot your own horn if you can, because you have a lot of personal accomplishments. I'm sure you have hobbies, and as a writer, can you share with us anything at all that is a personal accomplishment you'd like to us to know?
I mean, my oldest is 16, so I feel like that's a pretty...
Being a mom? Yeah.
He made it to 16. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I run on the side, so I do a lot of running, but I'm not like a professional at that or anything. So,
what's your average weekly mileage?
Like 65 miles, I think.
Running?
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's just what I do for fun.
What about writing accomplishments? Is there anything? I'm sure you're proud of each and every book, baby.
Yeah.
But I mean, this isn't your first book.
No,
Do you
no.
care to?
I mean, I don't like talking about
Well, okay. She's a very accomplished author, and you can go to her website and find out more about all her many, many titles.
Yeah.
Should we leave it at that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a pen name because traditional publishing is very slow. And a book deal that you get today won't publish until probably 2025. So that's a long time to wait, and I write a lot of books a year, like probably an average of 4 to 5 a year. So it just, the pipeline gets really bogged down. So I started a pen name, and I just do some stuff myself because it's like a creative outlet for me,
Yeah.
So
That's great. I hope that some people joining us today are also authors, and you would say to them they can get started early.
Yeah.
They can write more than one story.
I will say my first book, which is the novel in verse, was written in like 15-minute time slots because my kids were really, really young. And I would tell Ben, okay, you get to do their baths. And while they're bathing, I'm just going to write this story for 15 minutes. So I did it in like 15-minute increments in a year. And that's how the first book was born. So I tell writers a lot, like, even if you just have 15 minutes, that 15 minutes adds up. We don't realize that we're getting so much done. And there it is.
It does sound like you're pretty disciplined.
Yeah, I am a disciplined person. I tend to I tend to have routines, and I have a really hard time. Like when we go on vacation, Ben is always like, Rachel, you don't have to stick to your routine on vacation. Just be on vacation. I don't have a vacation mode.
She's like, I do have to stick to my routine. Well, I wonder, I'm not exactly sure, but you're open to taking questions from our audience.
If anybody has any questions,
And I'm not sure how we want to field them, but perhaps, do I stay here? I'm not passing this mic around.
No,
you just want to open it up?
We can open it up. If anybody has any questions, except for my kids. Don't ask me if you're going to eat yet.
There is a lovely table of snacks
there
over there.
is.
I think that's for after.
Y'all can
and
help.
In a bit, you'll be reading. Is that correct?
Yeah,
And
I can do a quick
signing.
reading, and I'll be signing some books too. So
Great.
yeah.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments?
I have a question. So was there ever a time in your writing when you just seized up? There was just a season you couldn't get anything on paper?
I don't know that there actually has been. Oh, has there ever been a time when I kind of stopped writing or seized up or just didn't have any inspiration? Is kind of what you're asking. I have so many ideas. Like my idea list is so long that I'm never going to get to it in a lifetime. Like I've even told writer friends, can you please take some of these because I am not going to be able to do it. And I don't know that there's ever been a time, even when I've like dealt with depression, writing is kind of it's just cathartic for me. It's how I keep myself healthy. And so it seems like there's just, I don't know, I'll have to look back in my journals, but I don't know that I remember a time when I just felt like I couldn't write unless it was time related, like if there was a season with the boys when they needed more of us or something. And then I felt more inhibited to write. So yeah. I thought Asa had a question.
Yeah, I did too. So it sounds like you're a natural. This is your inclination.
Yeah, it's what I love to do. My agent is always like, Rachel, you're just so much. She doesn't really say that. But I'm always apologizing to her because I'm like, I'm so sorry. I have so many stories and stuff. And I tell her, like, this is just how I take care of myself. I write and I try to get my thoughts on paper, and I just get a new idea, or I meet a kid who needs to hear something, and then I write a story about it,
I don't think you need to apologize for that. Probably the agent is thankful
is
that
happy.
you're sharing your story.
Yeah. She gets to make money off me, so.
Right. Yep. Does anyone else have questions or comments? We have, yep.
So if you could have any one of your books made into movies or a series, obviously one that you just published, but do you already have ideas about like who you might want
He
to
already
play
knows
the
the answer to this
characters
question.
and that kind of thing?
So he's asking if, do I have any ideas for who I would want to have playing characters in movies or TV shows for any of my books if they were made into a movie. So my second book, The Woods, I would love if Tim Burton produced it, and the score would be done by Danny Elfman, because that's like it's the whole feel of the book. For the first Magnificent Summer, I think we had a conversation the other day. You were asking about like animated series or something, and I think I would rather see it as like a real life series. Maybe I think it would be a lot of fun to see a 12-year-old Victoria on screen. I don't know that I have any ideas for who would play it. I don't know a lot of like the younger actors and stuff, but we did say, I used to, when I was younger, people would tell me I looked like Winona Ryder. So maybe she would play the mom or something. I don't know. So
that is so fun to think about, your stories becoming cinematic.
Yeah. I could see it being, a comedy series, and then The Woods being more of a, atmospheric movie. So I don't know about The Colors of the Rain. That one, because it's a novel in verse, but it's very historical, and it takes place in the 1970s. So when I was writing it, I thought, I always loved the style of the 1970s with the bell bottoms and all that, so I think that would look cool on screen too. So if anybody wants to produce it, that would be, let me know.
Yep. You've been so generous with your time and so brave to take, audience questions. This is your time if anyone else has comments or questions. I'm just personally feeling inspired and a little bit as if I need to be more disciplined.
No, please don't. I'm a weird person. Well,
everybody is. Okay. Well, are your books for sale here at the
They
Twig?
are, yes.
Today, this is the first day this book has launched.
That's right.
And so if people stick around to hear you read it, it will be the first, maybe? Is it?
There is an audiobook sample on, all the audiobook places.
Okay.
So, and she reads it a lot better than I do. So you should go check her. Her name is Tara Sands, and she's really good. So, yeah, that's available. But I can read a little bit if anybody's interested.
Yes, and then if they stick around, if they've pre-ordered a book, would you sign it?
Yeah, absolutely. I have all my neon pens. So.
Okay. Well, I might hop away while you do this.
Okay, I'll skip the first quote, but I'll go with period, noun, a length or segment of time. The word period can indicate short stretches of time and also longer stretches, such as the Renaissance period. Those dresses seemed a little over the top, if you ask me. If a person wore one of those during a Texas summer, she'd die of heat stroke. Geological time, like eras and epochs. Is that how you say it? Epochs? I don't even know. Okay. Or the dividing of a school day into periods. But it's summer, and as much as I love learning, don't tell Jessie Cox, I don't want to think about school. A period can seem incredibly fast, like the time Jenny took me to Rockport with her family, and we swam and ate seafood for every meal like no one cared about the cost of anything. A period can also be a period can also be completely interminable, like the hours and minutes ticking up to the moment when you'll see your dad for the first time in 2 years. I'll just read a few more pages. July 15th, 7:39 p.m. That clock on Meemaw's wall must have magnets for my eyes, because I couldn't stop looking at the swirling black hands and Roman numeral notches. 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. 2 hours since Mom dropped us off. 2.5, 3. More than enough time. She was supposed to call when she got home, so why hadn't she called? My chest burned like the grass fire Jack accidentally started in Meemaw's backyard last summer, and rubbing it didn't make it feel any less fiery. We managed to get the grass fire out before Mom and Meemaw got home, thank goodness, but the soles of our shoes were never the same after that. My leg vibrated under the table, unusual for me. I am a stillness queen. I can be as still as stagnant water, as a hammock on a windless day, as the suffocating air every time Coach Finley makes us run to the tee, my least favorite thing to do when school's in session. Must be my nerves, or maybe the quiet at the table, or all the thoughts piling up around me. I'm not supposed to open my journal at supper, but tonight I did, just to have a place for all the nervous energy to go. You don't want your spaghetti? Meemaw nodded toward my bowl, which I hadn't really touched. Another thing that's unlike me, not eating Meemaw's spaghetti. It's the perfect blend of salt and tang, better even than Mom's homemade sauce. Mom says Meemaw salts everything to death. I guess I like everything salted to death then. I didn't answer Meemaw, but she kept right on talking, like maybe she was as nervous as I was. Am I nervous? I haven't reached a definitive conclusion yet, but I think yes, maybe I am. Yeah, probably. Nerves, is it? Meemaw glanced at Jack. His brown eyes studied the table. His mud-colored hair curled around his ears like it does every summer. Mom doesn't waste money on haircuts when we're on break. I know why that's important, but I have to admit, it makes Jack look a little like a shaggy dog. Maggie pushed her orange bowl forward, and the bottom of it scraped the wood in a way that made me wince. A nails on chalkboard kind of sound. I finished mine, she said. Want some more? Meemaw said. Her eyes gleamed. I think Meemaw gets a lot of joy out of feeding people. Or maybe it's just making people happy in any way she can. Mom says she spoils us, coming to visit with bags full of kettle-cooked chips and cream horns and new crossword puzzles for Jack and composition books for me and coloring books for Maggie. I just think she's the best grandma ever, and I have 4 of them. I'll just stop there.
Clap for that. Thank you. Thank you. So again, we're here with Rachel Toalson at the Twig Bookshop in San Antonio, Texas. Her book, not her first, but one of her novels for middle grade, The First Magnificent Summer, is launching today, and she can sign it for you here today. It's perfect timing for the topics and also because it's almost summer. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think we'll mill about and have snacks and
I have all kinds of snacks over there.
The author, so thank you so much.
I have bookmarks and stickers too, if anybody wants bookmarks and stickers. So, all right. Thank you. Are you gonna stop the live stream? Oh, okay. I was like, I don't want to. Thanks. I'm all sweaty. I'll get my my pens out. Anybody would like me to? Just wait until other people do, okay?
But they're your longtime fans.
Yeah. That's right.
Sorry, I guess it wasn't quite on.
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I probably could have, I could have added a little more to. I should have.
I don't know.
Oh, not okay. All right. So, let me see my neon colors here. Not the yellow because that won't show up. Yeah. The blue, the neon blue. Okay. There was one oh there's an orange too. Yeah. Because these. All right. Yep, I'll do it here. Do you want me to? Oh, thank you. Do you want me to put your name on it or? Okay. You said blue. Yeah. Yep. Is it just RYAN? Okay. Well, I know Ryan.
We got to spend some time in the van on the way there.
That's right.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. It's really cool. It's a privilege to be.
Thank you so much for coming too. I really appreciate it. I was afraid nobody would show up, so. All right.
N-A-T-E.
N-A-T-E, okay. I'm gonna move this bookmark for now so it doesn't,
I have so many questions, but I didn't want to,
Oh, you totally could have asked. I would have answered anything.
I totally. You guys can go ahead and get me a sandwich each for now.
They were just concerned about the food. That's why they came along. I figured I'd hear a question about that. How's it going? Which color would you like?
I want some pink.
Pink? Okay.